Today, within this short 15 minutes talk, I suggest presenting my research questions, some conceptual backgrounds, as well as my research methodology. In 2014 and 2015, the World Meteorological Organization produced, in collaboration with TV channels and national weather services, fictional weather reports for the year 2050. Weather presenters were invited to imagine future weather scenarios in order to sensibilize about the consequences of anthropogenic climate change. These international artifacts introduced the 2014 UN Climate Summit in New York, the COP20 in Lima, the 2015 UN World Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction in Sendai, and the COP21 in Paris. With some 50 participating services worldwide, these productions offer a quite representative cartography of mainstream weather report images, of which I will quickly show you some excerpts.
Madame, Monsieur, bonsoir. Encore de fortes chaleurs en ce 17 août 2050. Dans l'après-midi, on atteindra ou dépassera encore les 40 degrés. 41 à Agen, 41 à Strasbourg, 40 dans les capitales, 42 pour Lyon.
Und wenn wir mal auf den Radarfilm schauen, dann sehen Sie hier von Westen in verschiedenen Staffeln kommen die Unwetter reingezogen.
E teremos mais dia quente no Brasil hoje. Faz calor de mais de 30 graus em boa parte do país, apesar de já estarmos perto do inverno.
Quant aux précipitations, il est à noter qu'entre 1990 et l'an 2010, nous avons observé dans la zone sahélienne autour de 500 mm d'eau, dans la zone soudano-sahélienne autour de 800 mm d'eau et dans la zone soudanienne autour de 1000 mm d'eau tombée.
Звучи ви невероятно, но дори и фантастичните прогнози вече се превръщат в реалност. Катастрофални наводнения в България и Сърбия. Пагубна градушка в Западна България. 20 градуса през януари у нас. Опустошителни торнада в Северна Америка. Невиждани студове отвъд Атлантика. Какво става с времето?
東京は8月に40度8分を記録しましたが、これまでの真夏日日数は連続して50日以上、熱帯夜は60日以上に達しています。
Come di consueto, ci affidiamo al monitoraggio dell'atmosfera che l'aeronautica militare realizza attraverso l'impiego delle più avanzate tecnologie. Le informazioni ci giungono da tutte le stazioni meteo mondiali, dalla costellazione dei satelliti meteorologici e da altre piattaforme di raccolta dati al suolo e in quota.
By reminding us that climate change is global, but its effects localized, the weather reports seek to show what climate change concretely means in our future daily realities. While weather is a reality that affects us immediately, climate is a rather abstract concept which we can't feel directly. Climate, as well as climate change, can only be seized by the means of a complex set of techniques, translating weather data into climate visualizations, as art historian and media theorist Birgit Schneider already demonstrated. While producers sometimes invent a TV studio or a futuristic on-air design, the weather and climate representations of the weather reports themselves have not been questioned, revealing numerous contradictions. As soon as the credit screen opens, the Earth is represented schematically using a cartographic grid that covers the globe or planisphere. Satellite observations show the planet's past and current atmospheric situations in order to expose known patterns that will cause the upcoming events. Forecast maps are focused on the nation state, outlining political boundaries that winds or clouds clearly ignore. Future phenomena, cloud cover, minimum or maximum temperatures, wind direction and speed are converted into a predefined series of icons that fail to capture subtle nuances. The causes and effects of climate change are moreover communicated through visualizations and models. Possible scenarios are illustrated by past images of extreme weather events, such as floods or drought. Media historian John Durham Peters points out that weather, communicated since modern times on a daily basis in diverse media, has become an extremely ordinary event. At the same time, however, weather has been defined, as he says, since Noah, by dramatic and spectacular images. According to Peters, we are so used to these, as he says, tired tropes and cliches, that these images struggle to express an exceptional ecological crisis and are therefore unlikely to provoke political actions. But beyond a certain storytelling that exposes extraordinary events, I believe that weather images mobilize, maybe above all, a modern history of material and discursive practices that emerged with the Renaissance and the scientific revolution. If the images visualizing climate change do not lead to a change in our extractivist and capitalist attitudes, despite the great quantity and quality of scientific evidence, it is perhaps because they separate human beings from their environments. While technoscientific nowcast and forecast technologies play a significant role in understanding the Earth as relational nature-culture processes and becomings, they also seem to actualize a specifically European style which puts nature at a distance. Within the context of visual culture and media studies, where images and technical mediations not only represent, mediate, but produce knowledges and realities, my research is driven by following questions. What stories and techniques of representation and control is the weather report the product of? How does mainstream weather report contribute in maintaining a cut between human beings and their environment? Beyond the pollution linked to the production and dissemination of material images, does the style of these most common images indirectly promote climate change? What side effects do mainstream weather images have on weather and climate phenomena they allow us to observe? And beyond critique, I'm moreover interested in developing a speculative repository allowing the design of a new meteorological vocabulary for the mainstreams. When images and technical mediations do and undo realities, what new weather representations are needed in the context of climate change? What new attributes and aesthetics should a weather image perform in order to show the deeply connected relationships between human beings with their natural cultural environments? Exploring these research questions, I suggest analyzing mainstream weather report images as specific media aesthetics generated within explicit media ecologies, hence definite styles linked to past and current narratives, instruments, and infrastructures which explore, describe, and produce both knowledges and worlds. As the weather report is actually based on various, often invisible, modern grids, I'm especially interested in the history of mainstream weather report images in line with the grid and its role in the construction of modern representations and understandings of nature. Ecofeminist philosopher and science historian Carolyn Merchant explored the emergence of a new understanding of nature that appeared in Europe during the 16th and 17th centuries. New metaphors, maybe most famously developed by René Descartes and Francis Bacon, encouraged a scientific revolution translating our cosmos as a machine and slave destined to serve man, who is necessarily male and European. Scientific observation and experimentation would enable the human being to modify and master a monstrous nature, notably by the means of knowledge and technology. As Merchant shows, the mechanization and rationalization of the Earth motivated the exploitation of natural resources in the name of scientific reason and technological progress. The mechanization and rationalization of nature, in fact, emerged with images, before spreading to science and capitalist industries, as anthropologist Philippe Descola emphasized. Beginning in the 15th century, European modernity is marked by the introduction of new artistic expressions, inventing humanism and realism. The representational techniques of the grid and the central perspective now translate nature as an autonomous background, independent of the human being who masters it through his gaze. As a drawing method most famously introduced by Leon Battista Alberti and Albrecht Dürer, the grid is used to reproduce a part of an observed reality on a support in a realistic way. The painting is intended to be an illusionist window opening onto nature, as art historian Erwin Panofsky famously showed. The perspective, moreover, initiated, I quote Panofsky, an objectification of the subjective. Whereas realism in the arts introduced an early understanding of scientific objectivity, the philosopher, anthropologist, and sociologist Bruno Latour argues that scientific visual language is never mimetic, but a long chain of conversions. In this sense, mainstream weather images can be described as a single, isolated image extracted and detached from the chain. Only in the context of mainstream weather mediation, often related to specific communication and marketing issues, we are asked to consider the image as the objective representation of weather scenarios. Latour invites us to consider a new concept and aesthetic of scientific realism where, I quote, realism is generated by moving along the reference chain and does not jump out of the flow of images and interrupt it, end quote. A new realism in the sciences could be explored as the visualization of invisible and naturalized operations in the flows of reference chains. In this context, a new concept of scientific realism within the mainstream weather report means to deconstruct a modern world conception and style that masks multiple translations that produce complex and interconnected relations. A new realism in the sciences is therefore interested in the concept and the aesthetics of the non-medium, formalized by the philosopher Sibylle Krämer. Whereas media remain invisible while enabling something to be visualized, Krämer argues that, I quote, a medium turns into a non-medium when it discards the neutrality of the mediator position in order to become a party and actor itself, end quote. Materializing the reference chains of weather production, representation, and dissemination is not only a methodology in order to describe mainstream weather images. Outlining the complex construction processes of scientific weather objectivity and aesthetics potentially becomes a tool in order to develop new forms of mainstream weather representations. Visualizing the mediator position seems to challenge the modern grid, translating the world into a transparent, predictable, and manageable system. It rather operates the decolonial aesthetic of weather as composite, as I could observe at the Centre de Météorologie Spatiale Météo France. This is an aesthetic of rupture and connection as formalized by the poet and philosopher Édouard Glissant. Here the grid performs the plurality and uncertainty of a world which cannot be completely systematized, which is not completely predictable, even less manageable, as every meteorologist would likewise argue. Thank you.